Hey there, this is K4A, Knowledge for All educational video channel. In today's video we are going to try to learn how and when to use GameMaker GML visual block, which is called if lives. This block is connected to some of the other blocks which we have learned earlier in our previous lessons and tutorials, so you will have to, if you didn't watch them or follow me using some of those, you will have to remake some of those or do it in your own way, but you will need some of pre-made stuff, and I will explain that now. So this block if lives is part of the instance variables group of blocks, so it needs get lives or set lives blocks, so you need lives defined for your game or project already, and then you can use if lives. So if lives is some kind, think of it as some kind of question, some kind of a condition which you want to inspect, to try to ask GameMaker, to ask your computer to do some kind of calculation and see if that question is true or not. So it's always two choices, true or not, 1 or 0, and false or true. So think in those terms, and in terms of this variable, we have learned earlier that lives is a variable which GameMaker programmers made for us already to speed up our game development. So they made a word container, a box which is called lives, and in it you can store how many lives your player has. In the start, that number can be I don't know, whatever you choose, 1, 3, 10 or so on, and then later you can change that number if you need when player dies and so on. So we will do that in our example, and again those kind of variables, things which can be changed in your game, they are called variables, and those which are made for you from game engine itself, from game engine programmers, they are mostly called built-in variables. They are defined before you start making games. They are defined by game engine programmers to make your development faster, and you have to be careful about those. And most of those are called and defined as something which your game will need, like speed, lives, health, gravity, and so on. So one of those is lives, and in today's video we have in our game we have so far we have defined our white square, our white player, to collect those coins, and when I do that, you see how score goes plus 5, so it's 5, 10, and so on. And in previous lessons I have defined mechanics, which is that when I touch the green square I restart my position and my lives go -1. So lives is 1, when I touch it's 0. And the problem here is because when I my lives are 0, and when I continue to play the game, it doesn't, GameMaker doesn't care. I can go into -1, -2, and so on. It can go up to -infinity. So we don't want to do that. We want to somehow limit our game to know when player has 0 lives, then stop the game, destroy the player, destroy it permanently. Don't make it reappear and resurrect at the starting position. So that's what we are trying to do in this video, and it's very simple because we have already used these variables score, lives, health, and so on. So now we are going to check the condition, how many lives we have, is the player alive or not, true or false. And one thing to be aware of is that again, before you start coding, you should think a little bit what are you coding and where that code already is. Is it in some specific object or some other object you want to connect it to, and so on. So in my example in game which I'm making myself, I have used these variables, instance variables like score, get score, set score, lives, get lives, set lives, set health, get health. I have used them in one game object which is called Game Manager. That made, and here it is, it's this question mark here, so it doesn't have any sprite connected to it because it's just a manager for the game. It's like some invisible master, dungeon master, which game master, which controls the game and sees how many players, how many enemies, how many health, and so on. So it's like some kind of a database for all the information about the game, so I don't need any sprite for it, but I have put those instance variables, those blocks and those code into that object. That object is obj game manager, and when I click on it and check its events, create and draw, I can see that I have set health, set lives, get score, get health, draw, and so on. So score, health, and lives, they are defined here. Lives and health. Sorry, score is maybe somewhere else, or yeah, get set. I'm not sure now where the set score is. I will find it later. But for now on, I am interested in this one, set lives. So set lives is here, so I have defined the variable lives with these instance variables blocks, set lives. I have just clicked and dragged it here before. So set lives is in obj game manager, and that's where I want to code this condition, this check mark, which says if lives. So what do I want to do here? I want to inspect, to ask the game maker if the lives are 0 or less, then destroy the player object. So in other words, if the player has no lives, then I want him dead. I want him out of my game, out of my screen. I don't want him reappear again and again. So again, it's not just about drag and drop. You have to think about it. I have explained earlier how create event is triggered only once. You use it once per object, and it's triggered in one frame, and that's it. So if I try to drag this if lives here into create event, it will work, but it will work just for a second. We have explained and showed that so many times before, but we have to repeat it. So this code here, if lives, will work, but just for a split of second, for one frame, and then after the game maker checks this, he doesn't care about it anymore. And is that what I want? I don't think so, so I will delete it. I want the game maker to check my game all the time about if the player is alive or not. Why is that so? Because he can play this game for 5 seconds and die, or he can play it for 50 seconds or 50 hours and not die, and then again, I have to check all of those states. I have to check all the time if the player is alive or not. To do that, the simplest way is to go to step event, step, click on it to make that event into obj game manager, and again this step event is triggered and checked per frame, so it's 60 or 30 times per frame. It depends on how fast your game works. And imagine GameMaker asking this question. Now I will drag and drop it into the event coding window, if lives. So think about this now. Step event if lives question, ask 60 times per second. It's like if you can uh, be fast enough to say 60 times in 1 second. If lives are zero, then kill player. If lives are zero, then kill player, and so on. So that's crazy fast, and that's why you want to be careful about the step event, but also to use it when you need to check something all the time. So this is where I want my code to be in step event. If lives are what? I want to check if lives are 0 equal to 0, then I want to do that. What? I want my player dead, and that is called instance destroy. I think we have used that before because we have used it. I will type destroy. Oops. Destroy in destroys in my search bar, and I will find destroy instance. Click and drag it. You can find it also in your instances group, and again be aware of a couple of other things which I will explain now, but yeah, let's go step by step. First of all, I want to code this sentence: if lives are 0, destroy what? Destroy instance, but which instance? I am currently in obj game manager, and that is this question mark here. Do I want to destroy that question mark obj manager? No. What do I want to destroy? I want to destroy this white square, which is my player. So let's find the destroy instance. Which one? Click on this little arrow and find self, no other, no all, no objects. Yes, obj player 2, great. But other than that, what's the other thing you should worry about? It's this question if lives, or any other kind of condition question you ask your game engine. When you do that by visual blocks in GameMaker or other game engines, you have to somehow drag and drop the question the response you want, or question in that question. Yeah, you have to connect the response, the reaction, into the question. So it's always it's not so tricky to. I will maybe later try to draw it on some kind of simple uh, paper or something like that to make it more simple. It's called diagrams and so on. But in short, if I leave it this way, now the GameMaker will, and it's maybe better visible in Scratch actually, because it's the same approach, visual coding. You can make some kind of space between those two blocks, and I cannot do that here in Scratch. I can do that somehow, maybe, I'm not sure, but here is what is important, that I can click and drag this into it, and that process is much visible in Scratch. So when I click and drag this destroy instance into if lives, you will see how this blue line will change. And now it's, yeah, I will close this one to see it better. So now it's below, and now they are separated. But now when it's the best thing is to click and drag it to into the other block and to the right, so you can see some kind of visual guideline to the right, and now it will jump into it. So now destroy instance is into this, is attached into this, it's embedded into this if lives. And now this question says if lives is equal to 0, and you can change this value here, we will do that later. Destroy instance, and the instance is, as we just said, obj player 2. But if you drag and drop it below this if lives, then it won't work. It will be like two different blocks, two different questions, and the instance will be destroyed anytime. It wouldn't care if lives are 0. So I can try that to see. I think it will be player will be destroyed instantly, because yeah, you can see that there is no player on the screen right now. and that is not an error. That is not the game maker doing something wrong. It's the game maker is doing exactly what we have said to him, and we have said what we have said. Okay, check if lives are zero, and then what? I don't care what uh, the result of that will be, but go later after that and destroy instance. So even if the lives are zero or not, we have not told the game maker what to do if the lives are zero, and we will do that now by, as I said before, click and dragging this onto the lives if lives block and a little bit to the right, so you can see this right visual guideline with some line. I don't know, it's pink or purple, yeah. So now this line on the left will blue line will change and it will look like green. So now it's blue line on the left and now it's green and below. It's kind of tricky a little bit until you do it a couple of times just to have some kind of visual guideline, because I think they could do it somehow better, maybe like Scratch or Stencil is also visual game engine, so maybe they will change that in future. Anyway, let's try this now if it will work. Now my question says if lives are equal to zero, destroy the player. So if lives are zero, is that true now or not? When the game starts, that is not true. Lives are 3, we can see that here, but when I touch this, lives are 2. It's still not 0, so it's not 0. My player is still on the screen. Lives are 1, so when I touch the enemy, lives will be 0, and then I can destroy the instance. That's what GameMaker will do. Yeah, you can see how that works, so it's cool. So this works. This is exactly what we wanted here to do, and we have learned also that you should be aware of how you put this visual block into the other. And I want to just show you another stuff here. We have a couple of options here with oh, okay, again 20 minutes. We have a couple of options here. Sometimes you will want to check if lives are some value like 0, 1, 2, 3, or maybe sometimes you will want to check if they are not. Again, it is best to explain it on some concrete example, which I don't have now, but we will use this in future for sure. And also sometimes you will want to have exact value checked, like here we have used the 0. Sometimes you will use some exact number, like I don't know, 160 or so, and then do something else. So that's when you use equal, but sometimes you will want to check if something is less than something else. For example, 6 is less than 7, something is greater than something else. For example, 6 is greater than 5, and so on. Less or equal and greater or equal are also good, and I use them a lot because for example, I would use in my game for this example here, which I have just coded, I would use, instead of 0, I would use less or equal. And why is that so? Because sometimes GameMaker or some other game engines, they will make again, it's not error, you can call it an error, but sometimes it's not just a simple error, but it's mostly dependent on how fast your game works and how you coded your game and how your game engine works. So sometimes the game maker will, for example, when you touch this enemy player with player, when you touch enemy, you will be your lives could be subtracted a couple of times instead of only one, and then you will you will go from 1 instead of 1 minus 1. GameMaker, because it will check it a couple of times too fast, depending on frame rate, it will go into, instead of 0, it will go into -1, -2, and so on. So then in this condition, is it equal 0 would never be met, because GameMaker skipped and went from 1 instead of 1 to 0, it went from 1 to -1 or -2, and then although your player lost lives and went below the 0, the game won't be finished, it won't exit, so you have to be aware of that. We will show that in some later examples, so I will use less or equal, but the other stuff what I wanted to do here is that I will disable this for a second, and what I wanted to do here is that if, for example, I use instead of using obj game manager, which as I said before has these instance variables, I will, for example, use now obj player 2, and into step event I will put the same code as I have just used here. If lives then destroy, I want to add destroy into it, but look now at the game what will happen from the start. I think the player will be, it's destroyed from the start, it's invisible. And why is that so? Because we have added this code here, if lives destroy this instance, okay, obj player 2, we have added this code into the object player 2, and that object player 2, it doesn't have what? It doesn't have this lives, set lives, it doesn't have this code, it doesn't have set lives variable, so it doesn't know what the lives variable is. That variable is here in obj game manager, here it is, set lives, and because obj player doesn't have that variable, I don't have it here, he cannot know how big or small that variable is, and how GameMaker doesn't know how to handle it. It thinks it's 0, it's by default 0, and it doesn't care why this user interface says lives 3, because okay, you have put some code into obj player 2, obj player 2 doesn't know what the lives are, you didn't put this set lives to some number, 2, 5, 3, let's try it with now 30, and now it will, I think, show up. So you have to be careful where you put your, you have to be careful where you put your code, and if you're making it double or something like that, or let me go to create event and set lives, but maybe again it will interfere or something like that. Anyway, just be careful about it where you put your code, and how you connect all of those stuff, because it can get out of control quickly. So I will destroy I will delete those, not to make you confused anymore, and this one, and now I think it will work normally, because we have put our code, score, yeah, sorry, it's here all the time, so my bad. So let me try, I have to try this once more because of myself. Okay, step event, let's do it fast. Step event if destroy. Yeah, now it's invisible, and now when I add set lives to 3, I was confused a little bit because yeah, now it's visible, it all works fine. Again, when you don't have this set lives variable, and you put the code into some other obj player or some other obj where you don't have that code defined, the GameMaker doesn't see that code, and he goes with this question: if lives are 0, that is true. Why? Because I don't see that you have defined lives anywhere, and you have to be careful about that. I will delete it, and now zoom out, and that's it. Again, about half an hour, but yeah, but very simple again stuff, but important, because your game, our game, is now growing up and looking like, although still very ugly, but looking a little bit more like a realistic game. We have mechanics, we have conditions, and 0. And why isn't, yeah, now it isn't working because I have disabled it, I think so. Yeah, so again, as you can see myself, when I work like this, I have to go you have to go enable, sorry, you have to go up and down and check. Sometimes you will disable these blocks to check some kind of condition, or to see how your game is working on a different level, in different way, and then you later forget, you will forget to enable it, and think of it, where did I do that, or if the game is complex or something like that. And the more the game gets complex, the more things you can forget. It works, and make yourself lots of problems, but so far we are growing slowly and surely, and as my channel, I have seen that I have 100 subscribers so far, today or yesterday, 100, so it's it's a big one for me, and it's funny also because I will talk about that maybe in next video, because my channel so far, it has FUQ, like fuck, in like a swear word in its name. Here you can see it on my channel's name, and I will change it soon, and now that name into probably into something meaningful, maybe not. But the funny thing is that it made me some problems on Scratch site. I will talk about it in next video. In today's video we have learned how to use this block if lives, and how GameMaker programmers made this condition. This is a condition. It checks if some condition is true or false, and that condition is connected to the number. That number can be whatever you want to put here, and condition can be equal, less, greater, lesser, equal, greater or equal, and depending on that you can do whatever you want in GameMaker. Put any code here after this, or to be more precise, into this, and the GameMaker will execute that code depending on if the condition is true or not, if the lives are equal to your number, less, greater, and so on. That's it for this video. Sorry for talking too much, but next video will be about 100 subs, and after that probably some more GameMaker, maybe scratch blocks, maybe Inkspace, or some vector art. I have to do some 2D and 3D art for some of my project, personal or freelance, so I will maybe turn some of those into videos. But be free to put some ideas, or what do you want to see next, or some questions. There was one guy which asked me some very concrete question and problem to solve in GameMaker. I apologize to him also because I haven't made a video on it, but yeah, that could be maybe the next one after the sub videos, and the next one should be maybe like GameMaker or coding questions and answers, where I will try to make some code for you for your personal project or professional which you cannot do, and show it how I would solve the problems you cannot. I think that would be probably uh, a well how is what is the word, not sure, never mind. See you next video, and bye for now.